All right, folks, I'm going to wait just a few seconds and really prolong this sentence here just to give everyone a chance to transfer from the waiting room to the webinar session itself. Oh, good deal. Lots of folks coming in. Welcome, welcome. Thank you all. Again, I'll just give it another couple seconds here. All right, it's recording, so I think I can go ahead and get started. If folks do join a little later, again, it's recording. You can always catch the opener of the recording. Well, welcome everyone. This is our second session of day 3. I am particularly pleased for this session. This is a more unique session. I think folks who have been attending our earlier days have seen we've had quite a bit of presentations and a few panel discussions. This one is unique because we are just having a discussion. Now, I should introduce myself and my colleague here before I introduce our speaker. My name is Alex Sorotsky, and I'm here with my colleague Justin Mauger. We're both educators with the Poison Center, and typically we've had one main moderator per session. For this session, we're having both Justin and I co-moderate, largely because we've both had the pleasure of working with our speaker earlier in the year. We did some excellent collaborative work together. Now, before I introduce our speaker, let me get the housekeeping out of the way, then we'll get into the heart of this session. So a reminder, we want you to ask questions throughout, and especially this session more than any other, it's a conversation. So Justin and I have a list of questions ready to go, but really it's going to be the richest experience possible if folks are asking questions as they have them. Please ask those in the chat, or no, in the Q&A box, not the chat box. Please save the chat box for comments, sharing of resources, or anything like that. Now, I am so privileged to introduce our speaker, Milli Militi. Milli is the proud mother of 2 sons, Juan Carlo, who is forever 20, and Dante, who is currently 21. She is originally from Los Angeles and has lived in Seattle for 18 years. She works as a licensed optician and frame buyer for 2 eyewear and optical clinics in Seattle, and is the founder and president of Fentanyl United Crisis Coalition. Now, that latter portion of her work is really what we're going to talk about today. So, Milli, thank you so much for being here. And let's just start by having you tell us a bit about yourself and about FUCC.
Hi there, Alex and Justin. Thank you so much for having me. As you mentioned, it's just been such a pleasure to work with you guys. My name's Milli. I am, as Alex said, the mother of John Carlo, forever 20, and Dante, 21. And I started Fentanyl United Crisis Coalition soon, maybe about a year after John Carlo tragically passed away from a fentanyl overdose. He was sober at the time and in treatment and doing really well, and had a moment of weakness, as people with substance use disorder will often do, and overdosed on fentanyl and died just before he was ready to come back home and start his new chapter in life. So the devastation and the pain and the destruction that comes from something like that is just inexplicable. I think every mother knows that is our biggest fear and our worst nightmare. And I can tell you, it is as bad as we fear. And it's terrible. And I often wonder how I'm still here, but I am. And I think in part the work that I've been doing has been incredibly helpful in giving me purpose, a new purpose. And I also feel it's a way to honor John Carlo, because he himself had a lot of empathy and was very kind and always wanting to help people, and felt very strongly about this issue and the stigma behind it. So I hope that by doing this work, I can spare other families and young people just the pain and the devastation that we've been through.
Thanks, Millie. I wanted to ask you a little bit about grief. I know that grief can take many forms, and we've talked a bit about this, and I've heard you speak before, and I know you've channeled so much of it into your work. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like and about that process, please?
Yes, I think it started out with just absolute anger, as you can see by my logo. It's a pretty angry face, a red angry face, and that is how I felt. just so much anger over so many failures in the system to help my son, despite all that we did, and just anger that this poison exists in our world and is so accessible to young people. So yeah, a lot of anger is what started this. I felt like I could single-handedly eradicate fentanyl from the globe. I realized that was completely impossible. And through trial and error, and by working with amazing groups like Washington Poison Center and other public health groups, I have learned that really the best thing that we can do is provide harm reduction and education and resources, because the war on drugs has failed, and I'm trying to tell teenagers not to use drugs will only make them want to do it more. So I think that especially when there's addiction to opioids involved, which is just completely too powerful for them to even handle. So I think we as adults, as caregivers, as mothers, as friends, we need to just make sure that these folks can stay alive while they're out there in this world and full of tainted drugs, and keep them alive, till they're ready to get the help that they need. And that's what harm reduction is about. And that's what we have now been focusing on through our website, through our social media engagement, through community events. My aim is to just hopefully connect with these people, these kids, these young adults, and say, we don't judge you. We're not mad at you. We don't want you to be in trouble. We just want you to be safe and to not die, and to go through this experience that you're going through without dying, and to have the knowledge and the tools and the resources to be able to survive this. And hopefully also through talking about available treatments and things like that, they can eventually come to their own conclusion that they need to get help. So that's why I do what I do.
Thank you for sharing that, Millie.
Yeah.
Oh, and what a great segue. Someone in the chat box just asked for the link to the FUCC website. I will pull that up right now. And I actually have that queued up on my end. We were having a discussion prior to going live about sharing a portion of the website. Would you like me to pull that up and share my screen now, Millie?
Sure, whenever you like.
All right. Bear with me, folks, as I push all the buttons here. Is it going through okay on your end?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Now, Millie, I know when we were planning some of the questions, when we were talking about that grief question, you had mentioned this newer portion of the website, the RIP tab. Would you like to speak to that a bit?
Yes. So I know for me, it's very, very important to make sure that Giancarlo is never forgotten, ever. In my heart, he never will be, but also I feel it's important that he's just remembered in this world. And so we created this page as a place to memorialize our loved ones. And we, we have a place for a photo of them. We get to write what we want to, a heartfelt message, and we also get to include a song that was special to them or to us together. And, in so many ways, I don't want to get submissions, in all the ways, I don't want to get submissions to this, but I do. And it's heartbreaking every time we get one. But I also think that it's important for families to be able to shine a light on the lives of their loved ones, because they're never, ever, ever gone from our lives. And we just want them to be remembered in the way that they died too, like through fentanyl. It's just so heinous and awful. And it's they've sacrificed their lives. And hopefully because of that, a lot of other people's lives will be saved. And yeah, that's what RIP is for. And then when we get a submission with the family's permission, we also share them on our social media and also continue to honor them that way. So I hope that this is a place where if you just, your love for your people, your children, your brothers, your sisters, it pours over in so many ways. And so here's another way, another outlet that I, I hope people will find gives them some sort of comfort.
Thank you for speaking to that. I'm seeing some questions pop up in the chat box, but before we get to those, just while we have screen sharing going, I know we had talked a bit about wanting to broadcast some of the resources on the FUCC website. So I'll just click over to that tab while it's open, and we can just take a little look, overlook of it. Are there any in particular you'd like to broadcast just right now, Millie?
I mean, just in general, like this is information that I didn't have at all. Like in 2019, when my son first started struggling with this problem, I had never even heard of fentanyl. It was just so new and so obscure at that point. And, you know, throughout our struggles in trying to help him and him help himself, we didn't have any of this information, none. And trust me, I believe if we did, I believe he'd still be alive. So especially I would say, you know, it's really important in terms of knowing what treatment options are available. So like that's one of my favorite tabs, treatment, because we were given we were given really one option on how to help him and it didn't work. And so treatment is really important. And I think all of it, I mean, this is just all such important information. I didn't know who to call, where to go, how to help, what to do. I just didn't know any of this. And it was through, you know, a lot of painstaking research and trial and error. And no one should have to go through that while they're trying to keep their child alive. And so I think they're all really, really important. And they're both geared to young people. So young people can go ahead and find Narcan or test strips if they're out there using or they want to help protect their family and friends. You know, knowing what to do in case of an overdose, where to get Narcan and test strips. Also, I think, again, like treatment, you know, if you are a loved one and you're trying to help someone who's going through this horrible, horrible affliction, various treatments now are so, you know, there's a lot of different treatments and it's not one size fits all. And that was what I was told. And it was very, very dangerous. And I don't want anyone to go through that. And I want everyone to hopefully have, you know, easy access to all the help that's available now. It's come so far in just a few years. It's unbelievable. So I'd also like to take a moment to, you know, encourage anyone who's watching this, who has resources that they'd like to share and have on our website. My goal is to build this out and have it be as thorough and complete and robust as possible. So please do share that either, you know, through my email or in the chat. So we can start sharing what you have to offer.
Thank you, Millie. As Justin asks the next question, I'll go ahead and get Millie's email posted in the chat box.
Sure. So I think you kind of alluded to this with your logo, but your material definitely has an edginess to it. I find it striking. I appreciate it. I'm a fan, but it's different than a lot of stuff that I see, right? And I was wondering what prompted you and the Fentanyl United Crisis Coalition to go that direction with your PR, marketing, etc. If you want to talk about how it's received, who it appeals to, that kind of thing would be great.
Absolutely. My initial thought, as I said, was I wanted to portray anger, the anger that I felt, but then also thinking about my son, Giancarlo, who's obviously been the inspiration for all of this. He had an incredible sense of fashion and was very edgy himself and loved streetwear and things like that. So it was that inspiration coupled with an incredible, fortunate thing that I have going in my life, which is that my brother, who was, you know, very close with Giancarlo, also owns a marketing company and helped me get this thing off the ground. I mean, he gave me like a whole team. And so he opened it up to his team to come up with some concepts for design. And, you know, everything that they gave me, these are all a bunch of really talented young people who are empathetic and just brilliant. And I was able to get a lot of designs, and I saw one that, you know, besides the logo, which I think is perfect portraying that, the name, Fentanyl United Crisis Coalition, you know, I was playing around with the name. And as I started to kind of look at what I was coming up with, I started to see those letters and I thought, whoa, yeah, like FUCC fentanyl, like, yes, that's how I feel. So Fentanyl United Crisis Coalition, abbreviated to FUCC, and you'll see on all my social media, my handle will be FUCC fentanyl. Yeah, I mean, what else can I say? Like, that is exactly how I feel about fentanyl and what it did to my family and other people. Over 100,000 people died of an overdose, probably 75% of those due to fentanyl last year. So it pisses me off. And so combination of my son's taste and his fashion sense, that I know he'd appreciate this, and that's really important to me because this is about him initially. And then my brother's brilliant marketing team over at Innovision in San Diego. And then can I show my shirt? I mean,
Please do.
listen, I'm not gonna lie, like, this is edgy, okay? But um anyone who's don't know what's happening here on my side, can you see it?
Yeah, it's going through.
Anyone who's familiar with the streetwear brand Supreme, we did not directly try to mimic that, but that was what it looked like to me when I got this particular design. And my son would have absolutely loved this shirt. I probably would have been pissed at him for wearing it at the time. But the point is, people like him love it. And it's people like him that I aim to help. And so I am learning, and it's working, that by having that kind of edginess in my campaign, it attracts people that need to be having this information. It attracts them, it pulls them in. And then once they're pulled in, they get to see that, like, hey, we're like on your side. We're not at all trying to tell you what to do with your life or to shame you or to make you feel bad about who you are. We're actually embracing that. And we are saying, listen, we get it. Like, we understand where you are right now. We understand that. And so please come into our world and try to learn things that will help keep you and your friends alive. And I feel like it's working. I had a lot of people tell me not to do this, not to go with FUCC because it would deter a lot of people and scare people away and turn people off, especially with the nun flipping people off. But like, why wouldn't a nun be mad about that? Why wouldn't anybody who's a good person be mad about that, or a spiritual person? Like, it's wrong. This stuff shouldn't be in our world, killing our people. So to those people that were naysayers, I said sorry, but my heart and my gut is telling me this is the way to go. And I think I was right. I think we were all right. Like, I got full support from the people that matter to me the most, and it's been very successful. So, yeah.
I just want to echo everything you were saying. Like, I personally love the shirts. I love the imagery you all have. And like you were saying, you are keeping Giancarlo present in this messaging.
Absolutely.
And my spouse is a social worker, and Millie, when you gave me my shirt and I brought it home, her first reaction was, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing," and her second reaction was like, "Why didn't you bring me one?" So she,
I hope she
so,
has one now.
yes, yeah. So, and we have a question in the Q&A box. When
Yes.
can we get some of those shirts? And there's a lot of reactions of love the shirt, thumbs up, fire emoji. So you're
Awesome.
getting a
Awesome. I
lot of
love
love
it.
there.
Well, I give them out at the community events that I participate in. I'm doing one this next Tuesday, scope screenings at the Egyptian on Tuesday, the 27th. That's a underground film festival. I like to go out to places where young people are out there having a good time. Again, I want to just like show them that, like, yeah, this doesn't have, it's scary as it's so scary, but also, like, it doesn't have to be if we're like this in the spirit of helping each other. Um, so that's one way to get them. Eventually I will have a way to obtain them on my website. But for now, just like reach out. If you can't make it to one of my events, I'll be doing the scope screenings every month, the last Tuesday of every month, except for September. Just shoot me an email and I'll get you one. Happy to. They're free.
I also encourage folks, if you're in the area and able to, go to the scope screenings event. I assisted Millie with it a while back, and it was a ton of fun. It was a great space. And then last thing I wanted to say on the shirts, Millie, is just you were speaking a bit to anger,
Mhm.
and I think in a lot of prevention messaging, a lot of harm reduction messaging, there can be an absence of anger, not always in a bad way. And I think something that's so powerful about a lot of your work is that you let that anger be present. And this is very justified anger. So thank you. Thank you for putting that out there into your efforts and into the imagery around it.
Of course.
All right. So next question that we have prepped, and folks keep asking questions as you have them. What messages or single message to other parents? What would your message to other parents be?
My message to other parents would be to, first of all, be really aware of the signs. And we do have a one sheet on my website. It took me a while to figure out what was going on with my son. He had suffered from mental illness from the time he was 13, depression and anxiety severe. And so he had been on medications for some time. And once the street drugs got involved, like his behavior was so erratic, but also in many ways it looks like depression and anxiety and anger. So it was confusing. So, but there are things that are very specific that you can learn about on my resource page. So number one, stay close to your kid. Try to understand that their behavior, while they can lash out and be, quite difficult to be around during this time because the drug just takes over. And that kind of becomes the only thing they care about. And so while it may feel like they're misbehaving or they're being disrespectful or they don't love you anymore, or they're just being horrible, it's not them. It's not them. Like, who your kid is, who's in there. Like, just don't judge. Just like let that be a red flag that something's wrong. And how do I figure out what's going on? How do I help? So number one, embrace them, love them. Don't, alienate them, despite how hard it is. Second, so knowing the signs. Second, like having a conversation with them and, try to get out of them what's happening. Ideally, you want them to be involved in their treatment and be willing to get the help that they need, because it's really hard, especially when they're over 18. As a parent, we lose control of their care, and that's very frustrating. So if you can get them somehow to be involved with you in their care, great. If not, like, just don't give up. Just do everything you can to get them help. Like every trick you can think of in the book, to get them help. And again, there's so many different ways to get treatment. I'm a big fan of something that was not available to me or offered to me now because I've seen the evidence, which is medically assisted treatment. Things like buprenorphine and Suboxone to help people get off opioids, because let me tell you, it is brutal and it's painful and it's hard. And I think that it's unreasonable to expect someone to just quit without that kind of help. That was not something that I had access to. And if I had, again, I do think Giancarlo would still be here with his family. So that's the best thing I can say, and if they're not willing to cooperate, I don't know, there's times I wish I'd kidnapped my son and got him somewhere. I mean, if I'd known that that would have helped him, I would have done it. I would have done anything. We will always do anything for a kid. So just don't give up. Find the treatment that's right. Find a way to get them that treatment, whatever it takes.
Thank you. I'm glad you spoke to treatment as well, medications for opioid use disorder. And just so folks know, if you go to the FUCC website in resources, there's a whole tab on treatment as well.
Yeah, and just recently, very soon, stay tuned. I've got some new great resources for that will be on the website soon. Stay tuned. And again, share what you have because I want to put it out there.
Sure, thank you. So, kind of shifting a little bit. So in this work, I wonder about some of what you consider your successes. What are some of your proudest moments in your work? And can you just bring us there? Tell us about that, please.
Yes, I think actually one of my favorite things was what I did with you guys over at Eastern Washington University. You guys so graciously invited me to join you on your training at the school, and you know, this was the first time, I mean, I've always spoken to young people, but this was the first time that I was specifically at a college, at a university, speaking to the age group I'm targeting in a huge group. And my expectation was so different than how it actually went down. I mean, I expected to go into this room and think, oh, all these kids are totally going to get what I'm talking about. They're going to be like so aware and supportive of what's going on. It's going to be great. I was surprised at how many of these students just felt like this was not an issue that was affecting their lives. And like, I know that's not true by the numbers, you know, and the facts and the statistics and my experience. So I was just really puzzled by that. And, you know, there was one student in particular who kept saying, you know, why should I care? This is just happening to the person on the bus or the person on the bench in the streets. Like, this isn't a, you know, and I was just floored. So I took that as a challenge, and it was a good learning experience for me to realize like um why a conversation is so important. And so we took that along with Alex and Justin and your great training and your great questions and your great exercises. I think that we all got to say to them, like, listen, like, this isn't always what it looks like. And yes, in the media, especially, it's very much portrayed as a homelessness problem, which it is, and it's terrible that it is. But you don't see like college kids, and you don't see like kids at parties. They don't show that, you know, they don't show kids alone in their room struggling with depression and mental illness and using because they're just trying to numb their pain and they don't know what else to do. And they feel ashamed. Um, so when we started talking about that, like, hey, do you have friends you think that are like struggling with depression and anxiety? Like, are they withdrawing? Do you notice things that are different? Like, and slowly but surely, you know, kids started to open up. And by the end of the talk, I had a line of kids telling me about their friend they're concerned about, or their cousin who passed away, or this and that and the other. And even the person that was very skeptical had a new perspective. And the fact that I was able to break through just by saying, listen, like, uh, just have compassion, have empathy. People who use fentanyl, this is not a fun drug. This is not a party drug, you know? These are people that are suffering with an illness, and then misguided, you know, they get into this street drug thinking it's going to make them feel better, and it absolutely destroys them quickly. So I would say that was one of my biggest successes. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, it was really special for us as well. So that was something that we worked together on, and I understand that you are available sometimes to work with other organizations or to be a guest speaker, as we work together on that training. How can people reach you? Is that something that you're often available for? Do you have a way to contact you that you prefer for that?
Yes, so in fact, I would say almost all of the work that I do is by invitation. You know, I do have another full-time job, so I spend pretty much all my spare time working on this, and so I do what I can based on availability. I hate saying no to anything, and but I do the best I can to get out to as many things as I can. And if it's something that seems relevant and something that I think can actually have an impact, and I will do all I can to participate. So yes, by all means, you can reach out via my email, or, you know, there's a way to contact us through social media and the website. So whatever is easiest for you guys, and I can't promise I can do everything. I wish I could. Eventually, I hope to have some assistance with that. But for now, I think that I'll just do the best I can. So please, yes, please ask. I'm always happy to do what I can.
And for folks who haven't seen, we do have Milli's email in the chat box a few times now. We'll post it again toward the end just to make sure it doesn't get buried in other comments. And just to broadcast this too, there is already a resource being shared in the comments for
Amazing.
Willapa Behavioral Health and Wellness, talking about a syringe exchange and harm reduction ban.
Thank
So
you.
please check that out, and we'll post that in our follow-up for this session.
Love it.
And I do want to take a moment too to echo a lot of what Milli was saying in that Eastern Washington session. And there were folks having been there, there was just this really great moment where, like, you know, Justin and I are frantically trying to wrangle these very, very enthusiastic young adults. And they kind of listened to us. They kind of paid attention to what we were saying. And the moment Milli started speaking, it was they just got like so sucked in. And Milli, you just have such this presence about you when you stand in front of a crowd, and I think that's powerful.
Thanks.
Um,
I would like to
and
say that. Oh,
oh
go ahead. No,
yes,
you finish. Go ahead, finish. And
oh
then
yeah, I was just gonna chime in that by the end of the session, that one student in particular who was like, "Oh, why should we care?" had some like self-chastened moments. So there was a self-call out that happened. It was good to see, and some of the
yeah,
fellow students were kind of calling them out as well.
yeah,
It
no,
was a nice moment.
it was amazing. And to me, that's the person who's very important to reach because we want to make sure that that stigma that isn't continue, it doesn't continue. But what I was going to say, and thank you so much for what you said. And I'm very humbled by that. I'm very grateful for what you just said, and I appreciate it. However, I want to say that a lot of that, and this is the truth, is that when I'm talking to youth, especially around that age, I see my son in all of them. I just do. And so I'm really talking to them with love. It's like the love that I have for him and my other child, and just it comes through every time I'm in a room full of kids like that, young adults. And so that boy, every kid in there, I see their hope in their eyes. I see their aliveness, their energy, their fears. And that's my son. And I see it every time I'm in a room. And I think that that's where that comes from. Yeah.
And yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Mhm.
So we do have a question that popped up in the Q&A box. What would you say to siblings with children who use fentanyl?
Um, Siblings of the people that are using. That's a tough one. Because my son, Dante, was had to go through this. It's just brutal, And I would say maybe try to be their friend, do the best that you can to be their friend. And I would say like there's this fine line between wanting to be supportive of them and be loyal to them. But like if you are seeing things that scare you, tell your parent, even though you may face some definite wrath from your sibling. But I think if you see something that's going on that maybe your parents aren't aware of, let them know. And also like just know that what your sibling is going through is again, it's not them, so they might be really mean to you. They might be really distant. They might be pushing you away. And again, just try to recognize, as hard as that is, especially when you're so close to your sibling, it's painful. But like, please know that like that is not them. They are being taken over by this horrible substance, and they need help desperately and quickly. And also, like, I think everyone who's living with someone that's going through this should know how to use Narcan, how to spot an overdose, look for the signs, what are the steps you need to do, make sure you have Narcan in the house, no CPR, like all of those things. Because a lot of these times, these overdoses occur at home and with the family there. I mean, my son actually had overdosed once before he passed and was revived. And that was when I learned. That's how I learned what fentanyl was. Not until that got that far did I know what it was. And we were all home, thank God. And it was actually his little brother that helped save him. Um, but like it's scary. But yeah, I think just be prepared and understand that this is not them.
Thank you. A lot of what I'm hearing you say is so much of it comes down to communicating
Yeah.
and like in communication with your loved ones and in all those directions.
It's
And
communication.
when, oh, please.
Oh no, I'm saying it's also just understanding this drug,
Mhm.
what it is, why it's there, what it does to you, how addictive it is, how potent it is, how dangerous it is. Just instead of being afraid of it, and it is scary. It's so scary. Um, but you have to learn about it. You have to know about it as much as you don't want to, and you have to face. I think so many times as parents, we don't want to face that this is something our kid is involved with. We don't want to face that, not our kid. Like our kid wouldn't do that, or, oh God, I don't want anyone to know that my kid is doing this, like this shame, there's so much shame involved with parents and families and the person using. That shame is deadly. It's dangerous. So be educated, treat this and understand this as a disease and not as um, people just indulging and being drug addicts. It's not that at all.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. I'm also noticing, all these different points where you said that like you and your family recognize that that wasn't him, that wasn't John Carl. These different sides pop out, and I think that's powerful, and like being able to recognize that and understand like what is actually happening with the mechanisms of opioids and with individual agency and decision making gets very complicated.
Yeah, and it's so easy to look at them and say, "Oh my God, they're just being a jerk, or they're being horrible, or they're so disrespectful, they're so mean. There's what's wrong with this person?" It's so easy to look at that. But like, if your child, God forbid, is suffering from cancer, you're not going to say, "Oh my God, like why are they sick? Why are they vomiting? Why are they losing weight? What's going on with them? Why are they like this?" You would never dare say those things about a cancer victim or any kind of victim of any other disease. You would comfort and treat and, all of those things. Do the same thing because this is a disease.
And that's such a powerful distinction when, we would never criminalize having cancer. We would never criminalize having, pick any other disease. And, just to the point you just made, when we approach this as a medical condition, we can do so much more.
Yes. And that's what it is. And it needs medical treatment in most cases.
Yeah. So I have a rather different question, thinking about, going back to the one of the earlier questions we asked, pivoting it a little bit. What would your message or messages be to providers? I know you've spoken to Justin and I about some of the experience you had with the various providers at
Yeah.
different hospitals.
Ooh, that's a big one for me. That's a touchy one for me because I got little to no support, starting from his primary doctor to his psychiatrists and his counselors. The hospital, when he first overdosed, would not even recognize that he was overdosing from fentanyl, um, because they didn't have the proper testing equipment at that time, and so it didn't show up in his blood. And they weren't taking me seriously, even though it took several paramedics and doses of Narcan to revive him. That should have been a sign. Um, and yeah, I mean, I had the evidence of what he was using, but like so there was this whole thing of like not even believing me. And then there was the fact that they didn't want to keep him in the hospital and they wanted to discharge him without us having anywhere to go or what to do. We were terrified of him coming home because we knew if this could happen in our home, in his bedroom, in our beautiful house with our beautiful family, like with all of his home, he had just gone out to dinner with his dad and his brother. Like, how could this happen? If that could happen, it's going to happen again. And I was just learning about all of this in one crazy 24-hour time span of almost losing my kid, watching the paramedics. The whole thing was just so traumatic. And then to be told, like, "Oh, well, we can't keep him here because technically there's nothing wrong with him." And I'm just like, oh my God, like I was in shock. And I had to literally beg the hospital doctor, the ER doctor I had to beg him to keep him one more night so that we could get the counseling we needed and the help that we needed as to where to go next and what to do next, just so he could be safe. And, you know, it took more than 24 hours to have a social worker come talk to us because they were so backed up. So what I would say is that that doctors and psychiatrists and hospital workers, please treat this like a disease. And I think it's so much better now. I think there's so much awareness now, but like, it's really important, first of all, for everybody to be on the same page. Like his psychiatrist, I don't think even knew that he was using street drugs. And I don't know what the answer to this is, but because he was over 18, I couldn't have a conversation with his doctors. And sure, he could have given them permission, but he was hiding stuff from us. He didn't want us to know what was going on. He wanted to do what he was doing because he had no control over himself. So I think if we can just figure out a way to where, like, if he's living with his family, we're his people that see him the most and know him the most, like, let's all get on the same page about what's going on with him and let's come up with a solution. I was never given options to have like medical assistance. And the only thing we were told that would keep him alive is abstinence. Well, I know now how hard that is to be abstinent to just go cold turkey off of synthetic opioids. The medication helps people go through that process in a much less painful, seamless way in most cases. And I think gets them stable and then kind of like gets them to a place where they're like able to like function and like move on from there. I think for some people, abstinence is great, and I've seen it work. And I'm talking about like going into like rehab facilities and things like that. But I don't feel like those facilities either are very prepared to deal with fentanyl. My son actually died in a rehab facility, which is a whole other thing. Because I don't think, and I don't blame them. I never did blame them, but I think that it was a symptom of people not having awareness and tools and resources and education about this drug. So as long as we continue to raise awareness to get doctors and care facilities and hospitals and everybody on the same page and to come together to communicate and provide options and have discussions. And yeah, just like those were all things we didn't have. So, and I think they're critical. If at that hospital, we were told that like he can go somewhere and get treatment to get off this drug until and then we'd have like that time to figure out what to do next. That would have been incredible. And again, maybe he'd still be here. So it pisses me off that we didn't have those things. And that's why I think I need to make sure other people do. Because otherwise, I know how important and valuable his life was from the second he was born, and that's never stopped being a thing. Even when he was going through this, that never changed anything, how we felt about him. But like, there's no way I can just accept that this was just some stroke of, oh, well, bad luck, fate, randomness, maybe, but I'm not going to let it be that. I'm not going to let this amazing life be just forgotten and what happened to him be for nothing, because I know he would have wanted to help others. So
And that's absolutely a sentiment shared by poison centers. Like, regardless of the substance, any form of poisoning, any form of overdose is preventable. And I think it is so important, just to exactly what you were saying, Milli, to like hold on to that. Because if we fall into well, stuff just happens sometimes, then it implies that there's nothing we can do about it. And that's absolutely incorrect.
exactly.
I'm wondering about I've seen you speak in a couple different settings, from the tiny Walla Walla winery, which was really one
That
of the
was
more
fun.
interesting. Yeah, that was one of the more interesting
Me too.
naloxone trainings we've done. To what I think was kind of a more conservative space with actually the college, the freshman folks at Eastern. I think something that I've seen though, and I imagine the viewers here they also feel this, but like, you connect to people really, really well, right? Like it's you take us, with you in some regard. Have you had any, like, we run into sometimes, going into more conservative spaces with messages on harm reduction and kind of some pushback about that? Do you experience that at all? Or is it, are most people just pretty much, persuaded immediately?
That's a good question. I would say I have definitely like gotten some messages on my social media that have not been very understanding of what we're doing and have been quite cruel in terms of like, we're not helping, we're encouraging, we're not preventing, we're supporting and all of that. And I just say, those things, I do understand. I do understand. And that to me, that's fear-based thinking. Um, it's scary to think like we're not trying to stop this from happening. It's scary to think that like we're gonna let these kids take matters into their own hands. I get that. But trust me, like, I tried every other way to help my son. And I know for sure now that these things would have helped him. And so, to the naysayers and then there's a whole, like, I've had some law enforcement folks push back uh, and just not agree with this approach, feeling that, again, it's supporting, condoning, encouraging. The last thing I'm doing is encouraging drug use. And I make that very, very clear, especially with like the blue pills, which is what killed my son and kills so many others and are so common and so ubiquitous. I mean, they're just everywhere. Don't take them. Yeah, like, please don't take the blue pills. They're going to have fentanyl in them. You may survive, you may not, but why would you take that chance? Most chances they will kill you or cause you to overdose. So I don't encourage it. I don't. If I could just take all the fentanyl away, I would. If I could stop it from coming into this country, I would. I don't think that we can. I don't think that we will. And I think it's unrealistic. I used to think that. I had one of my very wise advisors, Ben Westhoff, who I'm so honored to have as part of our organization on our board. He wrote the literal book on fentanyl called Fentanyl Inc. He was one of the first reporters to go undercover. He started writing about fentanyl. I think the book came out in like 2018. I'm not entirely sure, but he started researching this in like 2015 or sooner. So he was on this way before anybody was. And he literally went into China and undercover. And I reached out to him. He was the first person I reached out to after my son died because I wanted to learn everything I could about this thing that killed my son. I wanted to understand what happened. And I remember I reached out to him and he so graciously wrote back to me and we've stayed in touch. But I used to say to him, like, how do we stop it? What do we have to do? What do I have to do to stop it from coming into the country? How do we get it off the streets? And he, in his wisdom and knowledge, very kindly and graciously was like, you're not going to, like, trust me, this is never going to stop. What we need to do is just keep people safe and alive because it's never going to go away. I mean, hopefully, maybe one day it will, but maybe it'll be replaced by some other synthetic drug. There already are other even more dangerous drugs out there. So as long as it's here and as long as we're not able to stop it, and I know that the DEA and law enforcement have done some great things in taking pills off the streets and, stopping some cartel activity, but in the big picture, like, this is so above us and there's so much power involved and it's just so clandestine and unreachable. So rather than focus on criminalization, which is not something I do, because to me, that's wasting time. I think that they're winning, they're winning. And as long as they're winning, like, all we can do is be on the ground and, like, stop the casualties, stop the bloodshed, that's the best thing that I think we can do. And so yeah, I think that is honestly how I feel about it.
Thank you, Millie. And something I find myself thinking about as you were just answering that is this idea that prevention and harm reduction are against each other, that somehow they're at odds. And I think you conveyed that really well, that, like, of course you want to prevent folks from using it all. And when prevention isn't an option or someone is already struggling with that dependence, with that addiction, then of course we want to reduce harm wherever possible. So thank you for drawing that distinction.
Absolutely. One more thing I'd like to say about that is I raised my children in very drug-free. I was very strict about that. I wasn't going to have that in my family, in my life, and did all the things to try to prevent my kids ever going down that path, from engaging in sports and activities and enrichment and travel and enriching their lives and just being there as a mom. I was home. Their dad was home. We were a close-knit family. We were a good family. We did all the things we're supposed to do. And despite all those things, and despite what, the messaging they get at school about not doing drugs, despite all of those efforts, it happened. And I was very resistant to this idea that like, you know, I didn't understand all the things I'm telling parents to do. I didn't do because I didn't know. I have had to pivot, and I pivoted. Thankfully, I pivoted before my son passed. So I'm so grateful that like we actually had a lot of conversations about this. Uh, you know, during the 5, 6 months that he was sober and in treatment. We were very open, and I learned so much from him. He taught me the empathy that I have. And so, yeah, as a parent, I had to pivot because you do what you have to do to keep your children alive, no matter, even if that's against your morals, even if that's against your common sense. So trust me, believe me, abstinence, prevention, let's keep teaching it. But like, let's teach it in a way that doesn't scare them. Let's teach it in a way that doesn't shame them or punish them or make them afraid of being punished. Let's just like have direct conversations about this. Like, hey, maybe you are going to go out there at a party and try some stuff, but here's this one thing you really got to stay away from. Or here, when you go to that party, take this Narcan with you. You know, like you can't control them as much as we'd like to keep them safe. I tried, but you know, once they're old enough, you can't control everything that they're going to do or their paths that they're going to go on. So you have to pivot and do whatever it takes. So yes, prevention first. And I hope that they start that a lot earlier in the schools. And I think a big part of prevention is something we don't talk about enough, which is mental health support for kids struggling with depression and anxiety. Because honestly, I think in most cases, that's where it starts. And I think that kids from a young age have to be supported and be safe in talking about what they're going through and not get in trouble, not be ashamed, and just like start that really, really young. And hopefully, like if everyone's just on board and on the same page and treats this with empathy, starting with mental illness, because my son didn't even pick up a drug until he was 18. Um, so, you know, and again, he did it to numb because his depression, anxiety was pretty severe. So yeah, I think prevention is, I'm so all about that. But when that fails, then what? When that fails, you have to have a safety net. And that's what harm reduction is.
Absolutely. Ugh, so many points, or you'll say something and I just get goosebumps because it's just resonating, I think, really powerfully. You know, both in what you were just saying and a few different times during the session so far, you've spoken about control. And you know, acknowledging that like you can't control so many things. You can't control fentanyl coming into the US. You can't control ultimately what your child does and doesn't do. And I'm just finding myself reflecting on, you know, when you were talking about stigma a while back. And to me, it seems that blaming of the self for individual choice is easier for a lot of folks than acknowledging that they're not in control, that you can't always control these factors. And I think I just applaud you for a lot of the realizations you have gone through that you're sharing with us, because I think that takes just a lot of personal bravery to share all of this vulnerability.
Mm.
Well, folks, we
How
have,
else
oh,
could I survive? I was just gonna say, I don't know how else I'd get through this if I wasn't honest about it.
we have, it looks like about 7 minutes left. So please, this is the time to throw out final questions. Oh, and I'm just seeing a question here. See if I read this correctly. This might be for us Poison Center folks, but we'll see. My local protocols say that for fentanyl overdose, it should be overcome with neuromuscular blockade and not by Narcan. Ooh, that is a level of question, a level of clinical expertise that we'll need to pull our medical director in. So, David, thank you for asking that question. We'll hold on to it and we'll do our best to answer it in the follow-up materials there. I definitely don't want to misspeak to that question. All right, so let's see. As we are getting close to the end, Millie, what are some final thoughts you'd like to convey to folks, to anyone watching this live or the recording?
Some final thoughts. Well, I would say, you know, back to your question, you know, on resistance that I've gotten to this in the past. One of the things I encounter often at my events is I will hear people say, "Oh, I don't use drugs. I don't need Narcan." Please understand that, like, the Narcan is not for the user, because obviously if they're overdosing, they can't save themselves with Narcan. But I think it's like our duty for people to have Narcan, because listen, over 100,000 people overdosed last year. The final numbers for 23 aren't out, but it's going to be more than that. And it's about 75% from synthetic opioids. Narcan, when given in time and properly, will save you. And to not see it as like a tool that we should all have in our toolbox. It's like we all have first aid kits, right? We all have we may never use them, but we all have them just in case our neighbor, falls and cracks their head open. We have a kit, because that's our duty as a citizen. Well, it's the same thing with overdose. Those people laying on the street are people, and God knows why they got there. I'm sure, I think if my son didn't have us, he would have been there too, maybe, who knows? But no one's there because they want to be. No one's doing this because they want to be. So if less fortunate people with illnesses can't help themselves, I think take the Narcan, have Narcan, put it with your first aid kit. Maybe you'll never use it. Hopefully you won't need it, but it saves lives. It's just a fact. And in fact, I do want to talk about this, back to harm reduction. I don't know if I'm sure you guys are aware, but there have been some recent articles very recently showing that the numbers of overdose have actually, for the first time in 5 years, started to decline. And while there is not yet solid research to say it's because of harm reduction, there's a lot of correlations between the increase in availability of Narcan, test strips, treatment, those kinds of harm reduction things that have been totally on the rise for many different reasons. And I'm so grateful that they have been, are being attributed to the slight decline. Now I say slight decline, it's a slight decline, but it's a decline. And if that's one person less who died, that could have been my kid, it could be your kid, that's amazing. And so to the skeptics, please understand that this is helping. It is helping, and we need, don't get complacent because there's a tiny tick down. The final numbers aren't out, and they're not going to be good. So, but I think we're seeing, and soon we're going to have studies, research to support that harm reduction is actually making a dent in the amount of overdose deaths. And that's, to me, like the thing I said when I started this organization is one life. If I save one life, we've done our job, because that one life has such a trickle down effect on so many people. That one life that's lost creates so much pain and heartache and trickle down effects. That one life is worth a million lives. And so, let's just keep doing this. And if you don't use drugs, so what? Have it anyway, because you never know. Your neighbor might overdose. Your friend at a party might overdose. So this is all of us. We're all part of this world. And we're all part of this terrible, terrible epidemic. No different than COVID. We all came together for that. Let's all come together for this.
Absolutely. Justin, I saw you unmute. Go ahead.
Sure. I was wondering, Milli, say somebody saw this in there, like this Fentanyl United Crisis Coalition does great work. I like Milli. How can they support you? What would you ask us to do specifically in our ability to support you in your work?
Well, eventually, soon, we're working on, having a donate tab, which, funds are helpful for us to continue to put out this merchandise, which I think creates a lot of awareness and brings us a lot of kids. And so stay tuned for that. We're working on it. We are fairly new, just so you know, I just got my official 501c3 status this year. Even though we incorporated in late or in 2023. So stay tuned for that. But please participate in this harm reduction effort, because that's really, oh, well, follow us on social media. I mean, that would be amazing. Share our social media page, especially our Instagram and our Facebook pages. They're just chock full of posts that come out. We put posts out like 3, 4, 5 times a day. We have stories constantly. We're constantly posting information about resources, what's going on with the drug, where to get stuff, what's happening, doctors, treatments, anything new, anything that's happening. We're constantly churning this out on social media. So if you can get as many kids, young people to follow us as you can, that would be amazing. Share our social media with your followers. Just spreading the word is really, really critical. And yeah, keep narcan around and let people know that you are in this, fight. Stigma too, like how you talk about it is really, really important. And I do have a page on my website. We didn't get to talk much about stigma, but that's something I feel very, very strongly about. Don't judge people. Approach people who are going through this with empathy and kindness. And that goes a really, really long way to someone who's struggling because they already shame themselves so much. And that is just so dangerous. It contributes to their downfall. So get educated, learn the right language to use, learn how to talk to people. And if you start talking that way, and if you start making those changes in your language, the person next to you will, and so on and so forth. So I think if every one of us can just like get educated and then share that education, it will spread and that will make a difference.
Absolutely. Well, Millie, thank you. I just want to express so much gratitude from myself, from the Poison Center, from all the viewers here. You're getting a ton of support in the chat box
Thank you so
for the
much.
work you do, for you, for your family, for Giancarlo, for Dante, for everyone who's helped this effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. You guys have given me so much courage and strength and support, and I am so grateful. I love what you guys do. Keep doing it, and thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here.
And it's been an honor to have you.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks,
folks,
Tom.
thank you. Thank you so much for being here for this session. Feel free, please join our lunch networking session if you'd like. We're doing that at 11:45. That link is available on the website. And again, feel free to, or if you'd like that certificate of attendance, go ahead and complete that survey. If you don't see it at the end of this, we will be posting it again in literally every other session. Thanks everyone for being here. Stay safe and take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.